One is an opportunity to listen and to grow in compassion. Our neighbors' experiences are diverse and at times complex. Yet when we take the time to truly listen, what we find is strings of our lives in each other's lives. My hope is to cultivate a spirit of openness and curiosity that will inevitably help us grow into a community that can be a solidarity with one another. These stories may not offer tidy resolutions or easy answers. Sometimes they leave us in a place of tension, a space that invites us to ask new questions or see things differently. At their best, stories move our hearts, opening us to respond with compassion and understanding. Before we begin, I'd like to offer these words from Dr. Amit Ray. He says, "Compassion is all-inclusive. Compassion knows no boundaries. Compassion comes with awareness, and awareness breaks all narrow territories." In 2018, I spent 3 months in Barranquilla, Colombia. I was working at the Central American and Caribbean Games. In my nearly 2 decades of living abroad, no other country has captured my heart quite like Colombia. Barranquilla is a port city located on the Caribbean. It's a popular tourist destination. It's home to the world's second largest carnival. What I found in my time in Barranquilla is a beautiful culture and people who love Colombia. I was able to take some trips with my Colombian friends to their nearby homes in Santa Marta and Cartagena and was welcomed in like family. Colombia is a deeply special place to me and a place that I love. And another thing you should know, Shakira is from Barranquilla, Colombia as well. Tonight we get to hear from Beatriz Valencia, who was born in Barranquilla, and I'm just so excited about that connection as it's such a special place for me, and grew up on a beautiful island in the Caribbean called San Andreas. Previously, Beatriz worked at Sanctuary at ABQ as a research and development director, Albuquerque Public School as their community school coordinator, and was a multicultural storyteller as a storyteller for all ages and nationalities, and for Everyone Ingenuity LLC as the CEO and founder. Beatriz's heart for people and devotion to immigrants has allowed her to work to have a significant impact within the city of Albuquerque while reflecting a spirit of compassion for all. The beautiful culture and friendly spirit is found deeply within Beatriz, and I am pleased to introduce to you this evening Beatriz Valencia.
Thank you so much, Abby, for the invitation and for the warm introduction to your community. I'm very blessed to be here with you and being able to talk about my role in the city helping the immigrant and refugee community. In the last 4 years, I have been managing the Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs as the liaison for that purpose. This office was created almost 10 years ago because the community spoke and said we need a specific place where we can bring our needs or our wants for the community that is part of the city. 10% of our population, about 90,000 people, are call themselves immigrants and refugees in the city of Albuquerque, and they bring diversity, they bring economic prosperity as well to our city. They also have many cultures, religions, and different languages, which make even the city of Albuquerque more vibrant in the sense that to be able to be part of the general public. This is not new. Our being close to the border, we have a great amount of population that come from Mexico, Central and South America, but we also have many other countries that they can call Albuquerque home. And some of these places will be our refugees that come from Congo, from Tanzania, from Ukraine, from Iraq, from Vietnam, from China, you name it. We have a more diverse community that we can sometimes have a grasp on. And I work with many of these communities in one sense or another. Some of them are through cultural exchanges. Other ones are for doing referral processes. For example, many of them ask for immigration law services, how I can connect them to organizations who can provide some answer or guidance of their needs. Other times are things connected with housing. The last few years, we have some situations where it was very difficult for our refugee population to find housing. So we have a rent to a refugee program, and it worked. And we were able to connect with landlords, and by connecting with them and explaining the circumstances of our refugee population coming to Albuquerque, what that will mean to them. In that period of time, we were able to help house 100 families in collaboration, in partnership with the nonprofits who were asking for that support, and like Lutheran Family Services and other city agencies that were instrumental for that to happen. Just like the collaboration was essential to problem solve something. And so in many occasions, I work with different agencies, federal, nonprofits, participating in these community meetings to be able to address a problem or having a point of view that sometimes not everybody is aware of the amount of barriers that this population can have to access a service. For example, in many occasions, the eligibility criteria for certain things in housing are not open to all type of immigrant populations, which create sometimes systematic issues. But by creating the awareness, we are opening the possibility to problem solve. And many times when we problem solve for the immigrant and refugee community, we also problem solve for other members of society who are not necessarily in this situation immigration-wise, but other type of blockages. It could be an ID, for example, the homeless population. So they will benefit for any problem solve system for the immigrant community, could help other populations as well. Right today, that's just our examples. I have been able to do a lot of work in language access at the City of Albuquerque, because during the pandemic, it was very evident that if we only have information in English, public health is not only one language, that affects every population. So if we only have information about how to protect ourselves in English, many part of the communities will not be able to access the information. So the City of Albuquerque did a great investment in technical assistance and information during that period of time to be able to open up the channels of communication and having information in multiple languages. So in 2021, there was a resolution that passed, and now every city department has the possibility to use interpretation, translation, and in-person interpretation, sometimes according what is requested, or even you call over the phone, anyone that speaks a different languages different than English could ask for language access. That includes American Sign Language. That includes native languages. We have a quite representative number of people who speak Dane, Navajo in Albuquerque. So in many occasions, we give these things for granted, but communication is essential for public health, for public safety, and even for financial purposes. So that's one of the things also my office has been working on and doing a lot of work, doing technical assistance, trainings, and things of that matter. So today, the intention of what I was invited by Abby is because I know the community is worried about what it means, the changes of the federal policies to them, that in many occasions could transfer in creating a lot of fear in the community, which believe it or not, we have a quite a representative number of people who have mixed status in the state of New Mexico. However, there is also something that most people don't know, but more around almost 50% of the population that is immigrant and refugee in Albuquerque are already naturalized American citizens. They can vote. And that's something that most people don't know, but almost 50%. So the other part is that There are mixed status families, meaning that some of them are naturalized American citizens, some are born here in Albuquerque, and some could be like in the middle, like going to not having a specific status or in something that is temporal or something that they need to be renewed. As a result, if we are in the same family, you can have like father being from another country, kids being from the U.S. The mom can be in a mix, being in the system or going into the process. But that's what the information should not be given only to the people who are immigrant and refugees, but for anyone who can be an ally or can be part of these mixed status families. And it has been a pleasure for me to work for so many years in collaboration with faith community. If it wasn't for the faith community, many of the things that we do in the Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs would have not been possible. The faith community was the first one who showed up and support us in 2019 when we have a lot of influx coming from the border. If it wasn't for the faith community, we would not have been able to assist the humanitarian crisis who was coming to Albuquerque. In that period of time, I was just a volunteer working in the schools, but a volunteer helping, and I know many of different faith organizations and community came up and stepped up to the game and being able to partner with the city of Albuquerque to be able to open that gate, to be able to have that humanitarian response. Because what can happen here, it can happen anywhere. Just think about it. One day, someone was living in Ukraine for all their centuries, and the next day something happened and they were without a home. Being a refugee can happen to anyone. Many other places or countries or people from countries that I work with, many of these things happen from one day to another. So helping each other is something that is just human nature. In this moment in time, the city of Albuquerque is sharing through my office and the mayor's office and other offices. We are doing webinars, series of webinars where we are giving information with different topics to the community. So in that way, we can respond to their questions and their doubts about different topics and inform them. There is, as someone who works in education, I totally understand that when you give information and education, you are already being able to embrace that the community needs that. So bring it, share it, and in that way they will be able to respond to so many questions that otherwise they will not find it. So that's until now, we created 7 webinars. It has been happening every Wednesday. They have been recorded and they're gonna be uploaded in our website. We have 2 more happening. Yesterday we had one that it was called Who to Call, because the community was telling us what phone we should call in case of emergencies. Not everybody was familiar of what each phone line did. For example, 911, what they respond to. 311, what you can ask, connected with immigration. And then with 211, what type of questions. So we did a webinar in that sense to be able to answer the questions that the community was telling us. We also did one in safety last week about where we have Albuquerque Police Department and organizations for domestic violence and sexual assault giving explanations. When there is a period of crisis connected with immigration, when people hesitate how to ask for help, they need to know that knowing that Albuquerque is still an immigrant-friendly city is okay to go and go and reach to get that help and that support, because that is not connected with any federal agency where they have to transmit that information. So in that way, they still can feel secure if they are victims of a crime to be able to report it. Next week, we're going to have the Mexican consulate and we're going to have workforce. These topics are as important as right now. It could be in many occasions that a person feels that if they go to work, what can happen if there is a raid or information in that matter. But so knowing your rights is essential. Knowing your rights should be an information that only has to be in the hands of someone who is undocumented, like anyone. At this moment in time, I have been called sometimes to do presentations even to the Native American community, because in other places, not in Albuquerque, there has been racial profiling for the Native American community, and as a result, they feel scared. So that's why knowing your rights, it applies for anyone, regardless if they are not immigrant or refugees. And it doesn't take anything away from you. Like knowing your rights could be helpful for any type of situation. And in March 12th, we're going to have one specifically for the faith community. We are addressing the know your rights in spaces of worship. And as well, are we going to have special guests from the faith community speaking in behalf of what are the resources and information available. So I invite you to attend that event. It's going to be very special. It's a webinar on the 12th. We have other resources in our website. And I share all these resources with Abby. Abby, you can share it with everyone here attending. I will really be grateful for that, because there is so much information of not only what the City of Albuquerque is doing, but what all the nonprofits that we work with, that they partner with us. Again, the government cannot do anything alone. The community can go so far, but together, my goodness, we can do wonderful things. So that's why all the work that we do is in combination between nonprofits, federal agencies, the City of Albuquerque, of course, different city departments, community members. A huge amount of civic and community engagement is necessary for any type of endeavor. And if I tell you by what are my participations in national meetings, and I see like, we are doing this, we are doing that, and I see that the City of Albuquerque actually is not behind any big city in what we are doing. And I'm not talking only like the City of Albuquerque as my office, as one, me representing the Office of Immigrant and Refugees, but I'm telling you like other cities like Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, we are not so behind for what the nonprofits and the City of Albuquerque or other agencies are interested in being able to participate and embrace our community. So as right now, coalition building is the way that the community can be strengthened. And when we problem solve one situation that could be kind of difficult for one community, we can also help for many others. So I invite you to do how you're going to take action. Okay. There are possibilities to volunteer. It doesn't have to be volunteer with my office directly. The City of Albuquerque has plenty of opportunities to volunteer to help for different projects. We also can volunteer with one of the nonprofits who is reaching out to our communities. For that, you can access One Albuquerque volunteers in the City of Albuquerque. We have also something that you want to partner with our office. Sometimes we have events and activities where a partnership with a community group will facilitate to be able to embrace that community and give them information or something in that matter. The other part, we could be donating. We have the One Albuquerque Fund in the City of Albuquerque, where we have the Migrant Relief Fund. Why those funds are useful? Sometimes in the past, there is some type of needs that the immigrant community have that our office don't have the funds to, and we are able to use those funds towards that those type of supports. And that is part of a nonprofit branch of the city. It's called One Albuquerque Fund. And lastly, but not least, and I know that probably you already have done it, just by being here and listening to what I'm saying. Thank you so much, Avi, again for the invitation. Like you advocating. It could be that it's your student, it could be like it's your neighbor, it could be like it's your a relative of yours. an immigrant or a refugee could have been your parent, could have been your grandparent. The United States of America was built in the labor of immigrants who came from all over the world to build this strong country. If it wasn't for all the amount of migration that came to the United States, we wouldn't have been this melting pot of ideologies and thriving communities that always look for a better future. That's what everybody wants to come to the US, because they feel that that's the American dream. Sometimes the American dream can be difficult for someone who don't have the ability to go to the path that they were expecting, to having all the migration paperwork that they were expecting, like in many occasions. But what I can tell you is that if you have any questions and connected with all the work that is being doing, everything is about coalition building, working together, and that everything that is connected with the topic of immigrant community, at the end, it helps the rest of the community in the sense of most of the top housing, the part of a workforce, and all these things are interconnected with the city of Albuquerque's different places. I don't know what to say, that I cannot tell you that we are all interconnected, and we are not, it's not the other. Like when we see what we have in common, we have more in common than we think. We have families, we have children, and things to think about. So I welcome any questions that you can have, or if you want me to tell you more information, I will be happy to respond.
Thank you, Beatriz. Are there any questions or any comments that you guys would like to ask or share? I think Amy has a question.
Yeah. Hi, Beatriz. Thank you so much for coming. It's nice to meet you. I see that the city and the mayor have put out a lot of information communicating that this is an immigrant-friendly city and there are services available and all, and I'm always really happy to see that. But I also see that the new administration, federal administration, is threatening cities who are putting out that message. So I'm just wondering, you may not even be able to talk about this, but I'm just wondering how the city's handling that tension between what the intent of this city is and what is being threatened at the federal level.
Thank you so much for that question, Miss Amy. This is a question that comes very often, almost in every presentation. People are asking because they are worried. This is not the first time that, in similar circumstances, that has been a threat to sanctuary cities or immigrant-friendly cities. However, there is an amendment in the Constitution of the United States, the 10th Amendment, that allows every state to use the funding according to what they think it works for them, including the things connected with immigration. I know that the things are hard at this moment, but it's last time that similar situation happened, there was a legal intervention of some kind, similar to what California did, and as a result, that didn't took place in the state of New Mexico or even in Albuquerque. So legally, there are mechanisms to avoid that. The other part is bring community to be able to advocate that the values of a place shouldn't change because of a specific perspective. The values of the city of Albuquerque has been to be immigrant-friendly city, and it has been for a reason. We are blessed to have Mayor Keller having these values. He believes that being an immigrant-friendly city allows for many things to even be in a in the safeguard our communities. And yes, the City of Albuquerque and the messaging from the mayor's office have been connected, repeatedly mentioning about that we are an immigrant-friendly city, that we don't share data, we don't collect data. That's the part that I can answer connected with the federal funding in the past. That already had been addressed. I don't know what can happen right now, but what I can say is that, yes, that's the only thing I can mention at this moment.
Are there any other questions?
But there is one solution that, for example, some nonprofits are doing. They know that sometimes they're going to have a federal threaten their funding because right now many topics are in the spotlight. So what they do is that they save some funding, or they ask to the legislature for some time a way to be able to have local funding to be able to replenish those monies, and not necessarily count always that the federal funding will come that way. There are multiple organizations right now are in like difficult position economically, but they are problem solving. There are ways around to be able to solve situations, because it's not the first time that these things happen. So people are more prepared.
Beatriz, when you interact with the immigrant community, how are they feeling right now?
Well, depends. Okay, there are a lot of people who are worried. They are worried, but there are, what my message to the immigrant community is, if you prepare and you inform yourself, you are able to feel a sense of safety or peace. What they are worried, not necessarily because they are undocumented, or not necessarily because sometimes they are more worried about racial profiling than anything else. That they could identify themselves as like, oh, they're gonna stop me for no reason, and then they're gonna deport me for no reason. Or so. However, I always bring them to the following thing. You know your rights, so you know what are your rights as a human being here living in the US. If you have a plan, a family plan, as it's called, basically a power of attorney that prepares your, like, if something happened to you, what is going to happen to your children, what is the contact, or the people who can go, for example, to pick up a child to a school if something happened to the parent. If you know what to your property, who is going to be responsible if something happened to you. All of these things have to be in place just in case of an emergency. These are real things. This doesn't happen just right now. Like, deportations had happened for decades. So if there is a preparedness, you are able to continue, regardless if something happened, a detention of a parent, they will be able to have connection with their children afterwards if they have something in writing, a power of attorney. That's just an example. If they have updated their information in the schools, and if they call and it's not updated, where are they going to find a place to put the children if the parents cannot be found? They have to have that information updated. The other part is that also knowing that you're not alone. Many people think that they are alone because they don't have family close by. So that's why it's important that they are affiliated, for example, a faith community. So they have someone they trust, a pastor, a priest, a community member, a relative. If they trust someone, they are able to don't feel alone, to be able to have a resource or something to do. Those are just examples of trying to diminish the part of anxiety. And one of my biggest things that I have seen in the city of Albuquerque is that there is a lot of misinformation sometimes. They said, oh, there is an ICE. ICE is here, ICE is there. Guess what? Most of the time, they are confusing different law enforcement agencies. And until now, that in the recent past, there has not been an ICE raid in Albuquerque. Then what it had been is probably a stop because of some type of law enforcement doing a checkup because that day is Friday. And then there is more people with DUIs and they need to check up for cars. But that doesn't have to be anything to do with ICE or an ICE raid. So misinformation is a big trouble because when that happens, people don't go to school and they don't go to work. So how you are able to attack misinformation? Basically, don't help to put things on social media if you know that they are not true or you don't believe everything that everyone says. Please don't. Misinformation flies faster than reality does. So which create a level of panic that is unnecessary. So that's why locally, sometimes there are, just to give you an example, the Mexican consulate has a specific phone number. And sometimes community members call to verify. They have direct communication with ICE to be able to take away to identify if something happened or not. So someone is saying, oh, there is a raid outside of this building. And then someone can go and call that phone number and say, is it true that this is happening? And then they go and check it out. They say, no, it's not happening. So we have to be very careful with misinformation. Misinformation is extremely hurtful for our communities. Being afraid is not something that we want to see in the community.
How are you feeling, Beatriz, as an immigrant yourself?
Well, I have been living in the US for 25 years. I'm a naturalized American citizen, but I know it's not easy sometimes, but in the sense of how, not necessarily for me, because when I see, for example, people like Dolores Huerta or Cesar Chavez or Martin Luther King, I say, what is happening now compared with what they had to go through? Like, we are blessed, seriously. Like, they really had to go and initiate the civil rights movement. We are at least already have seen it happening, and we had, like, there are many good things that came up from that. So in that sense, in my position, what I had to be is hopeful that by doing coalition building, by bringing people together and make them understand what other people experience, and also, me but also being an immigrant and refugee. No, I'm not, well, tell you that creating that awareness, it can bring us together and being able to bring bridges of understanding that to create some type of calmness in the community. Everything is about hope, doesn't it? You as people of faith know that if we have hope in the future, then we are able to really think that there is one mañana, there is one day more that we can go and look for something better for tomorrow. So I'm always hopeful. Sometimes it's hard. We have our detractors, but we cannot let our detractors. Look at Dolores Huerta with 10 kids. 10 kids was able to do it. why we cannot do it now. We have all type of mechanisms that are free to be able to inform people, to share information, and to help each other.
The neighborhood I live in, I have some Latinos that live around me, and they started expressing a little bit of fear. And I was able to share some of those links with them. And as Beatriz said, if we can just make sure that we're giving out good information to people and cutting back on the misinformation, that's just going to help so that people can understand what their rights are and know how to navigate this time together. I want to just remind all of you that one will happen once a month, and our next one will be on March 27th at 7 p.m. I want to thank each of you just for joining us tonight. And Beatriz, thank you again. Muchísimas gracias por venir y compartir con nosotros. Lo agradezco mucho. I really appreciate you coming and sharing with us, Beatriz. You are a value to our city. Thank you so much. Have a good night, everybody.